Hello, friends. Welcome back to Film Chewing. We are on continuing the Oscars project. We will be discussing the 1973 Best Picture, which is The Sting. Runners up that year were American Graffiti, Cries and Whispers, The Exorcist, and A Touch of Class. I'm here with Jared and Chris. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Very good.
Yeah.
This is a weird. It's kind of strange because it's sandwiched in between the two Godfathers.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that it's completely different, and I think it may be overlooked because it's sandwiched in the two Godfathers. I think it's overshadowed because of that. But what are your thoughts on that?
Very good, Jared.
Chris. Yeah, me. Yeah, I could see how it could easily be overshadowed by those two because it's different in tone, it's different in style, it harkens back to an older time in not only just in the literal time period that it takes place, but also in this just a style of shooting, the style of movie. It harkens back to this sense of these like the Robin Hoodie type criminal, the good guy criminal, the guys that you're rooting for, even though they're actually not. If you really think about it, they're actually not very good people, but you still like them. You like them a lot. You're rooting for them. Whereas the Godfather, on either side of this film, is dark, and you know that these are bad people, even though you get good characterization out of them and stuff like that. They're the dark mobster you don't want to be involved in. These guys are like your buddy next door. You want to have a beer with them. You want to hang out with them and shoot pool with them and probably get all your money taken by them while you're doing it. But you're gonna have a good time, and it's just such a tone shift from those two movies. But when you really think about it, though, it's still about gangsters. There's a fascination with gangsters during this period in time.
I should have went first, Jared, because you pretty much said exactly what I was going to say. I
told you.
think I would have approached it from the other side, if you know what I mean. And that it is a tonal shift, but it's sort of about exactly the same thing. Again, it's about this kind of underground kind of set of people that are trying to fight against the system. The Godfather being the mafia, and then in this case, the people fighting against the organised crime in some ways. So it's sort of the same world. The biggest difference, I think, for this one is just the 10 years previous kind of setting that it is. So we're still sort of in the Depression era of America. And so the actions of our motley crew, so to speak, kind of are very much are trying to fight against a time when nobody had anything and sort of trying to do it for themselves. So the idea of organised crime around that time is a lot less palatable in some ways, because like people literally had nobody, and organised crime were actually using the poor to get groundswell support in a lot of ways during the Depression times, like Capone, etc. was doing around the time. So it's sort of interesting what it is, but it is very tonally different. But I think both sets of films do this really amazing job of creating a scene and a sense of place in it. So you definitely do believe, from the choice of music, the Scott Joplin, the whole way through to just the general look and feel of everything about it, you definitely get a sense of place that carries through all three of those movies, both Godfathers and The Sting.
Yeah, I wonder. I think they're visually both different. With the Godfather being the Godfather has that cinematic. You get the feeling like it's something special. Where the Sting, not that it doesn't feel special, but it has a very kind of simplistic. There's not a ton visually that's really jumps out at you. That I think kind of it sets a time period, but it doesn't really it's not visually stunning the way that something like The Godfather is, or other movies, and even something like Lawrence of Arabia, or the movies that we've seen that have that visual element that you really walk away with something in your mind. I think The Sting is more of focused on having kind of just fun with it.
I think
I agree. It has more of a staged look. You know, all the scenes and stuff like that, they take place in a stage kind of feel, and there's a lot of back and forth dialogue, snappy dialogue that happens between the characters that has that kind of feel, whereas it doesn't have the sweeping epic camera shots and stuff like that that Coppola used, and of course all the other ones that we've seen before that.
Yeah, I don't think this is an entirely original thought, but it definitely struck me when I watched it, and when I compare my thoughts against reviews that I've seen. If you take Newman and Redford out of this film, I think it's a very ordinary film. I think there's not a great deal for it to stand out. Now, I think that's one of its strengths, and I think one of the things that the director does, he knows what he has in Redford and Newman, and he kind of gets out of their way and puts them in the right place to make the most of this film, because the two of those guys on screen, and there's plenty of other very good character actors within this whole piece, I think that's definitely to its strength, but they transform it into something great by their very presence, and certainly The Godfather has a fantastic ensemble cast. The casting, as we said last time, is just absolutely on point in that one, but this is very much more of a two-hander in a lot of ways, and the kind of both people being, I'd say, people that you can root for. You know, they tended to play, like Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid was a couple of years previously. You know, Newman definitely had his moments with Cool Hand. Like there were characters and actors that people rooted for, and it made it very easy to kind of get on board with their hijinks and their stealing of money and all of that kind of stuff. But like I say, otherwise it's very playfully done the whole way through.
And Robert Redford, he definitely has a presence on the screen. He definitely has that movie star kind of, you know, weight to him. Where when he's on screen, he's very charming and charismatic. But he didn't strike me as his acting chops in this one. I think he's supposed to be kind of goofy and aloof in some ways, aw shucks. But he didn't really strike like Newman's character. I think his performance is a lot kind of more polished, but Redford's is kind of, I don't know. I wasn't too impressed with his performance. When he's like I said, he has that presence, but his performance didn't really blow me away. I mean, it's not like a dramatic kind of movie where it's not really what you watch the movie for, but it's still.
I totally agree with you, Steve. And yet Robert Redford was the one that got nominated for Best Actor, which I find really surprising of the two of them, because I think Newman outacts him in this, definitely. And you're right. Like Redford's character is the much more kind of not as wise and not as confident as Redford's character is supposed to be, but it is not quite as assured as Newman's, in my view, as well. So when I seen the nominations for the year, I was like, this is quite surprising, because I think Newman's gravitas really holds it together.
The interesting thing was this movie was a Redford project. He was brought on first, and
right.
Somebody sent Newman the script just to look at it, and Newman thought, oh, this is great. Can I be a part of it? And the role that Newman takes on in the film was expanded because Newman wanted to be a part of it. It actually wasn't that big of a part until he got involved. So it's interesting. I wonder if that played into the decision making for nominations and stuff like that. You know.
Well, we might have talked about this before, but actually nominations for Oscars, etc., are done almost by marketing teams. They pump an awful lot of money behind supporting people. So it's quite conceivable in this case that they didn't support Newman because he was an also ran in this in some ways. and it being more of a Redford project, like you say, he was brought on first, and he almost turned it down because he didn't necessarily believe the director could pull it off, that kind of stuff. But that I think that that definitely could play a part there, definitely.
Yeah, Redford. I think he demanded a certain cinematographer to be used rather than because the guy was kind of green. I guess the actual director was kind of green.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that. For me, Newman really. If I would have guessed whose project it was, or I would not have guessed Redford. I would have guessed Newman because he has a kind of his movie in a way, I think.
Yeah, even though he's not in it for the first the first third, it was a his character was somebody that Luther was the one who recommended that what was his name, Hooker, go to Chicago to meet up with him. So that was it was interesting. I thought it kind of started off very simply. It was he was a swindler. He gets on the bad side of the wrong guy. He gets somebody killed because of it, and he's on the run. And he goes to Chicago because he's on the run to meet up with somebody else. But along the way, the plot actually gets a little bit complex, and a lot of different things start coming into play if you were trying to follow up all these things that are going on, and the things that kept coming back to haunt him that he was originally running away from was more than just one thing, and it was it became very interesting as it played out.
Yeah. Pretty complex cons they have going on.
But it's funny, my memory of this film actually is that the big sting in my head and my memory was the Four Jacks. I mean, my head that I had remembered that as the climax of the film, the bit where he really hoodwinked him at the end, and of course that happens just before halfway in this film with the card game, with the threes and the nines, etc. The play that's set up on him, and the double switch, etc. That came in around there, and in my head that was the big climax of it, where you go, wow, he's got him, or you think he's going to be in trouble. With the 4 9s against the 4 3s, etc., and then he pulls it round. They're very reminiscent, if anybody wants to look it up, of a classic BBC sitcom, Only Fools and Horses, an episode where they're playing cards there, and they do something very similar, but in a pure comedy sense. If anybody wants to look that up on YouTube, they said definitely play on the same scene and Sting.
Yeah, I completely forgot that the whole thing was based on betting on horses. Because like you, the last time I saw that was I was probably 20. I don't know. So it was many years ago, and I didn't remember anything really. I didn't. I actually was a little faked out at the end. And I was like, oh. At first, I thought it was like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, ironically enough, and it wasn't. It was quite the fake out. So that was quite entertaining seeing that, because that's how fuzzy my memory is. I did not remember that at all.
I like speaking of the horse races, but they have the setup for the horse races when they would announce when they would read back the races, and they would send in the winner, and the whole setup with giving him the winning horse, and he'd go in and you can never do that today. That's some things that can never ever do. Yeah, it's at the time it's like, how are they doing this? Are they making up these races, or how do they know? How are they faking these horse races? But it's just a delay that they don't know, because you wouldn't know probably till the next day in the newspaper or something. So it's kind of funny.
But it goes to how elaborate the whole thing was, between the setting up of the the board and the talking and one of my favorite bits actually of it is where everybody's sort of interviewing for a part. Like they're being cast in a role in a film, and this is I want to be my speciality is to be an Englishman. I could be a really good Englishman and whatever else. I really like that part where everybody's all these hustlers and people were coming from all over the country. He goes to get the list of who's in town, and then they put the crew together and all that kind of stuff, and everybody's just playing like a very small part within the bigger scene, and they're all gonna get a cut. And it was like almost like you said, the Robin Hood thing of honor amongst thieves. Like that was really what it was about. This very very community-led thing against the mobster gangster character that Robert Shaw played, who is absolutely hateful in this. Like he does an absolutely brilliant job as well as being a character that nobody has any sympathy for at any stage.
He's the same actor who's in Jaws, right?
Yes,
I didn't realize this. Yeah, I didn't recognize him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah,
it was that was hilarious, and it's kind of funny because he's sitting there, he's going to learn how to become a hustler, a better hustler. Like there's different levels to this. Like there's different like you go in like a regular job, you have to move up the ladder, and then you have to attain certain skills in order to advance in your career. And I thought it was hilarious how that was like you said, that they're interviewing for different roles, but it's also like interviewing for the positions in a company, and you have to, and the company has to have certain positions to fill in order for all this to work. And it was like all this going on, and it seemed like a ton of work. I'm like, it would be easier to get a regular job. What are you guys doing? but it was so it was just fascinating watching all that going on.
And not one of the extra people said anything to anyone.
Right.
It was all kept secret, which is another. I don't know.
And on the flip side of that, it was very clear that it wasn't just about the money. I mean, it was very much about kind of the memory of Luther, who was killed, and kind of paying back for that, even to the point that kind of everybody gets a cut. There was no sort of like hierarchy of I get this much or whatever. Everybody was sort of in this thing together, and even to the point that Redford's character basically says to the end, "Oh, I don't want any money. I would have just blown it anyway." That's and that's set up quite well earlier on in the film when he takes the $3,000, and just kind of gets himself hustled by the casino itself.
Yeah, I thought that was a key point in his characterization right there. It's like he gets that $3,000, and it was just kind of easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
He was so casual about it,
He bought a nice
cavalier
suit, and then he had a bet, and then that was
he had a bet, yeah.
Yeah, he blew it pretty fast.
He also thought that actually, I think there was a little bit of a commentary in there in terms of like he went to a casino and he thought there would be honor there. You know what I mean? That they wouldn't be cheating and hustling him in the same way that he was doing with everybody else on the outside, which I thought was quite funny. They're busy pressing the button and whatever else. Yeah. And I think there's a bit of a commentary there against kind of like legal hustling and illegal hustling and mobster culture, etc. All the different forms that sit within society.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, just kind of one of my favorite scenes was the poker game when everyone knows where they know he's cheating, so they cheat too, and he can't call them out because he cheated.
Yeah,
and so that was all that whole setup there, and I love that he dumped out the rum or vodka that he had the bottle and filled it with water, and he was drinking out of it. And pretend like he was drunk and doing the whole, comes in without his attire that's required or expected, and it's just fun. It's just a fun.
And the mispronouncing of his name on purpose every single time, just to keep on winding him up and keep on doing that and kind of infuriate everybody in the place. I mean, it did show you the kind of art and proper skill that was involved. It wasn't just a simple thing of oh, I've got quick hands, sleight of hand here, and I can kind of play with cards. There was a whole thing to set up around it. You know, there was no good just doing the cards. You had to get somebody to kind of focus on something else other than the cards, in order to be able to pull that off. Which I thought, you know, they did a very skillful job in setting a lot of bits up with character work, rather than just kind of it happening with kind of no sense of where it came from, or the skill level that people had. It was good, really good characterization right the way across the board.
Yeah, because there was a real tension at times that Lonergan was just going to lose it, was just going to blow his top, and you know, either shoot the guy or have him thrown off the train or whatever, wherever it was. Yeah, and but I think even that was set up because it gave the future Lonergan the room to make decisions when he had to, you know, when he had to go to a certain restaurant and wait for that phone call, you know, because he was playing on other people's turf at that point. But the earliest scenes of him not blowing his top and killing people showed that he was flexible enough to actually do that, even though he was just, you know, horrible monster mobster, you know. So yeah, very, very well set up characterization, like you said. I thought it was pretty cool.
I read some reviews that said he's too gullible, or he seemed like he didn't see it coming, that he didn't see the setup. But I think the whole motivation for him was greed, and he looked past all the red flags because of the payout and the chance for him to capitalize on the situation and to get over on Newman's character, because he was so angry about being kind of outdone at his own game. So I don't really see it as him being gullible. I just think he was out to prove something, to get payback and to make some money. So I didn't really see that.
It's also like it's a movie.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a real life depiction. They could have done something else with it, but it would have added another half an hour onto the film. And at that point, I think you would have lost the audience, because I think it's just about the right length in terms of having like a long setup and go before. I think any longer and more twists and turns, I think you start to take liberties with your audience and what's happening there. So you sort of need to buy into the fact that he is smart enough to have some, you know, caution, but also driven enough that he thinks he's better than everybody else. He's used to getting his own way. He's used to doing that. Like, there's lots of things. The fact that on one hand he was sending people to go hunt after Hooker, you know, for his earlier crime, and then they couldn't put two and two together that he was killing stuff as well. Like, there's a couple of things that you would think at a level of organization that they were at, that they would have spotted that kind of thing. But also, it sort of helps along because it's not a super serious film. It is very much about being playful, and you just sort of want the good guys to beat the bad guy. I mean, at the end of the day, with the added complexity that they're not really good guys. You know, I think that's what sort of makes it fun and sort of makes it playful.
And if you did think it was a serious movie, I think that notion goes out the window in the last 10 minutes, because it really just goes for it. I mean, there's any thought you may have had that this would be a serious ending or a serious movie is not the case. But it's fun. So
yeah. And that whole concept of not taking Lonergan too seriously when he you know, bulldogs his way through the china shops, you know, and that whole concept is you know, brought full circle when it sets up the audience to be faked out by the fake deaths of both of them, and I think it just fits very well together, you know. Really fun stuff.
But yeah, I think it was the perfect length. There's no really waste of time. It's all very tight, and it flew by.
Yeah. I think it's worth talking about the narrative setup where they use the flashcards to talk about the different levels of the sting. I mean, I think that's something that would never happen now. but it kind of helps. Something you said earlier, Jared, about its staginess. It's almost like scenes within a play at that stage when they use the kind of title cards to basically say the tale, the sting, the setup, and all of that kind of stuff. It's very very reminiscent of all of that. And again, I think it kind of breaks this veneer of seriousness and kind of says, you're here to be entertained.
Yeah, and it's very reminiscent of the silent movies.
Yes, absolutely.
When they used to have the orchestra playing in front of the movie, and they had the cards, for the not only for the scene setting but for the dialogue as well, and it's very reminiscent of that. And I love that part of it. I love how they set that up. I love the old time music, the drop on intro and stuff like that, and even the drawings at the beginning and stuff like that. I thought that was a lot of fun, very cool to look at, and and the cards coming in like that to get set out to set up the different sections, the hook, the take, the wire, the shutout, and then the sting, and I thought that was just really a good way to refocus the audience's attention on what's actually going on instead of getting lost in the intricacies of the plot, and it just brought everything back to it so you could refocus and just concentrate on sitting back and enjoying a show and having fun rather than because you could have got lost in sections where,
for sure,
where the woman's suddenly trying to kill him, and I could easily see people getting confused, like, wait a minute, she's an assassin, what's going on here, and who's this guy saving him and all that stuff. But then they bring it back and they give you the title for the next section and they say, relax, here's how it's going, we'll explain it all, and they do, and so it really I think that was a clever device to make it a more pleasant viewing experience.
I hadn't thought about that, Jared, about the silent film, actually, because the Scott Joplin soundtrack makes complete sense, because actually those silent movies back in the day where there was no sound was literally just a guy usually playing a piano alongside the thing. I actually went to a Buster Keaton show with a live improvised soundtrack, but the one guy came and doing a piano, and he's done it 400 times or something. He says it's always different, but you get the general beats and things of it, and it was very like that. So you get a sense of actually that's exactly what's happening in that time and place, and it's incredibly effective because it's also reminiscent of that time and place of Depression era in America.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, I think that's kind of adds to the. No, they're not good people, but the Depression era, I mean, I think that's another part of it where everyone was desperate. So.
Yeah. Well, again, around that time, the lawlessness of things like probation predates this a little bit, as me and Jared are both imbibed at the moment, which is, peek behind the curtain here at the moment. But again, there was an idea. Like it sort of reminds me a lot of tone and place of the Untouchables from many, many years later as well. The kind of setup of a lot of those places, like almost like the Speakeasy, and that people were breaking the law, but ultimately they were just looking to blow off some steam after how crappy world was at that time, how tough it was at that time, and in many cases that's sort of what's happening here as well. Is that these people who are incredibly capable can't find proper work. Like, that's not what's happening in America at that time. But these people are incredibly smart, are being able to use that skill set in a novel way, and we can buy along with it. Maybe because it's Robert Redford and Paul Newman. That doesn't hurt. But there's plenty of other great character actors along the way as well.
Yeah. Made me wish that Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid, was one of the winners, so we can kind of have that as a pretext to this. But they definitely have chemistry on screen and together. But Redford reminded me of the Brad Pitt of his era, kind of like. Sure. And it's funny because they're in the film
Spy Game,
in the late '90s, early 2000s Spy Game. They're in that together, so.
It's sort of like a similar setup as well, because one's a senior spy and one's a junior spy coming on. It's like a similar kind of idea that Redford and Newman have in this film, the kind of the one coming up as well. But yes, he's like Robert Redford's impossibly good looking in this. In this film,
they have those shots, to to kind of display that too often.
Yeah, because they have him like a bit rough at the start, but then he goes and gets his hair cut. And he's very dapper, and you're like, oh god, he's looks like a different person. You know, it's like what the hell? It's like Clark Kent without his glasses on. But yeah, there's definitely that sense of big superstar, good-looking actor. And I actually was trying to think back actually to all the films that we've seen so far. That has been something that I don't think has been incredibly prevalent in many of the Oscar movies that we've seen up to this point. This fact of these like impossibly good looking people that were stars. Like if you go back to the 30s, 40s, 50s, the Cary Grants, that kind of stuff, they were those people. With a bit of a gap, even in the 60s, like Albert Finney's not maybe he is in people's walls. Maybe he isn't. Peter O'Toole, not really sure he's gonna.
Audrey Hepburn is.
Audrey Hepburn is, yes, absolutely, she is. But the females, I mean, I would say Susanna York is that in Tom Jones. You know, she's on people's walls. The females were there, but the males, like I don't. Sidney Poitier, maybe.
I think,
Rob Serling, no.
I think
John
Peter
Voight
O'Toole had some. Peter O'Toole had some. Some fans there.
He's not exactly Brad Pitt, though.
Well, no. I mean, Robert Redford. He's unique in his appeal until we get up to like the Brad Pitts and what have you and stuff.
Yeah,
he was something else in his time.
Yeah. Like you could say John Voight, maybe in Midnight Cowboy. Yeah, definitely not Dustin Hoffman, but but it'd be interesting to track through because I think Al Pacino has that boyish charm in The Godfather Part 1, but you're surrounded by James Caan and Robert Duvall and Marlon Brando. They're not exactly picture perfect people in their own way. But
he's also young and he's also hard.
Yes,
and it doesn't lead to as much sex appeal as Robert Redford would.
That's right. So it will be interesting to kind of. It's the first time it really struck me in this film as compared to all the other ones you've seen. Maybe from West Side Story, Apartment, they had attractive people in it. You know, that Apartment sort of works on that general idea in a lot of ways. West Side Story to a certain degree as well. But after that, it's kind of not as obvious.
My
as
Fair
we're going
Lady,
through. Yeah, My Fair Lady or
Some
Audrey
music.
Hepburn, yeah.
Just
Yes,
looking ahead
Christopher
a little
Plummer, I
bit.
suppose. Yeah, Christopher Plummer. Yeah, I suppose that's fair. Yeah.
Looking ahead a little bit, Rocky. I mean, I don't think Stallone was really kind of a good. I don't know if he could really be qualified, but
No.
there's Rocky. There's and then not until
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
maybe
Jack Nicholson.
later, maybe Nicholson. But really, I don't see a whole lot after that, other than I mean, up until like the '80s, where we get into like the Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, Harrison Ford. But yeah, there's not a ton. I was
Kevin
thinking of the
Costner
list. There's not a
Wolves.
ton
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
Isn't it funny how it might be just something about Oscar films in general that they're sort of impervious to that in some ways, like that doesn't kind of, that's good for box office and people going to the cinema to see, but maybe not for translating to awards or otherwise. Possibly, I don't know. Something like
Rain
that
Man.
go through.
Yeah, Rain Man in the '80s. Tom Cruise shows up. I mean,
Tom Cruise shows up.
yeah. And there's not a ton. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Braveheart later.
Mel Gibson. I mean,
English Patient.
Sure. English Patient probably refines. Yeah, it was
Oh
Titanic.
yeah.
Titanic
Gladiator.
trades on that. Yeah,
Leonardo, yeah.
Russell. Yeah, okay. So you're starting to go back into the to the thing. But
2000s.
I just thought it was. I just thought this was interesting that, and this one does rely, I think, on its leads quite a lot. You know, in terms of driving the entire film to do it. So I mean, no better vehicle for them to do it. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, I think probably especially in the 70s, 80s, the kind of the movie star, the male leads that were, you know, kind of I think they were more in the action films, more not really the Oscar.
Yeah.
The ones that really the Oscars would nominate for Best Picture. So I think they were in a different genre film.
I think it's also fair to say that movies in the 70s, maybe this isn't reflection looking back, they definitely fall into the category of artists were making the films in the 70s. You know, there was definitely a step up in storytelling and the kind of grittiness of everything that was going to happen, and so that maybe didn't sit as well with people that were very beautiful and pretty like it did in the 30s, 40s screwball comedies where they were all about romance, men and women getting together. People were very charming in those. These ones a lot of times were not ending well for the characters. You know, there were grisly ends for a lot of people, even Warren Beatty and things like Parallax View and all that kind of stuff. You know, good looking fella, but you know, maybe not always good things happening to those characters, etc. That you're talking about. So yeah, it's an interesting discussion point, I think, for sure.
I wonder if relatability played a part in that people were looking for people who they can relate to, not so much as these otherworldly figures that are infallible. Even John Voight in Midnight Cowboy, a lot of things happen to him, and he's
that's right.
You know, he's not exactly the best person in the world, even though he has obviously some good qualities. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't really think of it until you said it.
We talked about this previously, actually, around the fact that some films didn't win the awards but were incredibly influential for the next lot of years, like Butch Cassidy would have been one, but Easy Rider, etc. with Fonda. It's not
Henry.
Henry.
Is it Henry?
It's not Henry, it's his son. Anyway, and Jack Nicholson, etc. and on that, Dennis Hopper, etc. That kind of, people wanted to see real people in movies around that time. That started out. That was one of the reasons that was so successful, and it's kind of, it's affecting on the intervening movies that came after it in Hollywood, where people were like, no, we want to see people who are real, that they recognise from the street. They don't necessarily want to see people that are glitzy and glamorous in all of the ways that we had seen in a bygone era in Hollywood. And while Easy Rider didn't win the awards, its influence on what came afterwards was enormous.
Mm.
Yeah.
This is 73. When did 2001 come out, The Space Odyssey?
Let's see.
Before that, it didn't get nominated. I think it made a really stinking point of the fact 71 or something like that.
Yeah.
70, something like that. It didn't get nominated at all.
Wow.
Yeah, indeed. It's unbelievable. An interesting point to make about the nominees this time. I don't know the answer to this one. It's just something that occurred to me when you were reading out, the nominees. So The Exorcist was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director Billy Freak. Was done it. I don't know the next time a horror genre film was nominated at all.
I didn't see any on the list.
Sixth Sense.
Don't think it was nominated. Maybe it was it? I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to it, but it'll be interesting as we go through the years here to look out for genre film. Maybe it was then.
Yeah.
But it's very rare. It's incredibly rare because the Oscars shun genre filmmaking, whether that's Marvel, whether it's sci-fi, no matter what it is, they tend to look down their noses at it a little bit. And The Exorcist is definitely worthy here. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Probably the greatest horror film of all time in a lot of people's eyes. And William Friedkin was a former winner, obviously, because of French Connection, so that gave it some weight. But it's something to watch over the next lot of years, I definitely think, because this could have been a turning point where it became the norm. And maybe we'll get to those days again sometime. Parasite's sort of a genre film of a way.
Is it? Oh, okay.
I don't see any. The Sixth Sense was nominated in 1999.
Yeah. Okay.
American
Best
Beauty
Picture,
won that year.
Best Director, Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
I don't see many other ones though.
Yeah, it just struck me when you were reading them out, Steve, that that's so unusual that a horror movie, and especially in the 70s and 80s when horror and genre films were most of what was on in the cinema. Like, it's not like it was later on. There's definitely the satanic panic thing that we've talked about previously, Jared, that kind of people would have shunned away from maybe making them make awards, but there was a lot of the cinema box office at the time that was very much genre filmmaking. The whole Amblin thing from Spielberg was very much genre filmmaking, incredibly successful at that time. But when you look at the films that are getting the awards in the 80s, a lot I haven't seen in a long time, so I reserve judgment until I review them. But they were not the films that people were going to see at that time in the cinema. That was definitely not the case. Yeah.
I mean, I think Star Wars was nominated, but
yes, I think it was. Yeah, it was.
But,
77.
Yeah, it's not surprising it didn't win for that very reason.
I don't see any other horror films. I'm in the 2020s. Yeah. I didn't see any other.
I remember there was a hope that Hereditary was going to get nominated because it was seen as different enough, kind of groundbreaking enough, fresh enough, interesting enough, had multiple levels of theme rather than being horror. And I'm pretty sure it didn't get nominated. It was a bit of a sad point that year. And when they decided to up the amount of films getting nominated to 10, one of the things was that we might get more. I think Get Out was nominated the year it came out, and that was kind of one of the reasons they kind of went to 10. So they were looking for animated films and genre filmmaking to be sort of encapsulated in that. And so it probably has happened much more in the past couple of years, but The Exorcist stands out like a sore thumb for its time and place of when it was nominated.
I wonder what. Yeah, I guess we'll talk more about it that year that it gets nominated. But I wonder what the reaction was that year. Oh, it was this year. I wonder what the.
What was this year? Yeah.
This year. I wonder what the reaction culturally was.
It won adapted screenplay, and Linda Blair was up for Best Supporting Actress, which was ironically won by Tatum O'Neal that year for Paper Moon. So two very young actresses that year. That done, and it won Best Sound, I think, as well. But it was up for most of the major categories and kind of walked away with a few things. But
Interesting. Total opposite.
Yeah, I do think in retrospect it would have been a good pick for this year. If it had went Godfather 1, Exorcist, Godfather 2, I think it's much more interesting than. I'm not saying I dislike the Sting, because I think Sting's a great movie. But it would have been much more interesting kind of sequentially and more interesting kind of awards wise to kind of mark the 80s and be a better representation of what the 70s were.
Yeah.
And if it had won, I think it would have changed later nominations too. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. But that's maybe that's what alluding to what I said earlier about the fascination with the gangster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of ruling these kind of things, categories and stuff.
Yep. Very much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right, Steve, that if The Exorcist would have won, that would have changed quite a few things, yeah. I think more movies would have been made along those lines in order to kind of capture that, or people might have felt freer to make more genre-type movies.
Well, they might have been felt freer to make more thinking horror films that didn't come later, because it ultimately become a split then between people went to the cinema to see the schlock kind of slasher horror that went, and it was kind of like separation of church and state in some ways, whereas if The Exorcist had to get validation in winning that Rosemary's Baby, something like that, really prominent horror films that had deep thematic kind of undertones as well going on, then it might have encouraged people to say, actually, we can combine these two things really, really well. Like 78 has Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think it was robbed a little bit from a nomination as well. I think it's tremendous. But again, I think this set the tone with Exorcist not winning.
Yeah. So are we saying the wrong movie won?
Yeah. I would say so. But I don't think it's a scandalous decision. I like The Sting's a very good movie, and it definitely plays on the star power very, very, very well. There's no doubt about that. It's one of those ones you can definitely see why it won. I think from my point of view, I think when we're looking back in retrospect in all these years, we're sort of looking for the most important movie to win an awful lot of time. When you look at the list of nominations, a bit like we just talked about there, 2001 not getting nominated at all is a very black mark, I think, for the Academy. In a lot of ways.
And we've been saying that this, starting with these past few years, it's been very stacked. So we've had a lot of choices to make.
Yeah. Next year's another good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think The Exorcist winning would have changed cinema for decades after. Could have been groundbreaking. But
I also think it would have been very good for the genre, because I think a lot of people probably shy away from The Exorcist because of its scary kind of nature. It's very challenging. Not everybody can watch The Exorcist, and maybe that's the bit that counts against it. You know, my wife wouldn't watch The Exorcist even now, even though it's kind of silly in retrospect. Sure. But there's horror as a genre that people would not. They'll never go near to that because they just don't think they can watch it. Whereas an Oscar win gives it validation to say there's something more than just the scares here for you to watch. There's something more to see, and maybe that's why ultimately they couldn't let it win. This was the much safer choice. Maybe of the panel and the jury, they went, I couldn't make it through The Exorcist.
They were probably relieved that there was another movie that was good enough to say, "Oh, I can choose this instead." Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see now looking back, because I didn't see The Exorcist until I was in my 20s. I didn't think it was very scary at all. But at the time, I think we were probably more desensitized with the material out now. But at the time, I can definitely see people who were religious having a problem with something like The Exorcist being nominated and winning. So that probably didn't help it at the time.
Yeah. Projectile vomiting and head spinning round. It doesn't exactly scream Christian America. I don't know.
Yeah. And I can see it being too scary for some people too. So
the
material
definitely.
probably didn't help.
And my wife can't watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang to this day. It's just, that's the kind of level of horror that she's at. She's tried 4 times to make it, and she makes it 2/3 the way through until the child snatcher appears, and then she's out.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is accessible to everyone.
It is.
So,
and it's clever enough. Yeah.
So, where does it fit on everyone's list? It's probably top 5 for me. Probably right there.
Wow, really?
Right around there. And definitely top 10 when you factor in all the other ones. So I'm thinking 5 or 6, give or take.
Interesting.
I would probably say 6 or 7 for me. So.
I'd say 9 or 10, something like that for me. And I like it quite a lot. But when I think of a lot of, like, it's below Heat of the Night, it's below Midnight Cowboy, it's below French Connection, it's below a lot of those films for me. Not by much, but it's a style of movie and a genre of movie that I've liked less as I've got older, if that makes sense. That kind of period, it's almost farcical in some ways, you know. It makes it very enjoyable, but it just doesn't quite have the depth of some of those other movies. Like Midnight Cowboy is almost the opposite of that, insofar as, like, watching it as a young man, watching it later, like, it resonates so much more with its thematic ideas as an older person watching it than it would have when I watched it much younger. So, isn't it funny how movies take on different shapes and forms as you go through your own life?
You're right, because the French Connection isn't hitting me as well.
Yeah.
The second time as when the first time I watched it. I like it, like you said, it's still a great film, but it did go down further than I would have expected it to. I mean, I still love the film, but
did it for me as well. Yeah.
It's just it's funny, that you watch something again later on in life with such a huge gap in between the times you watch it. It really puts a different perspective on things.
All we need is another 15 years and Tom Jones will rise again like a phoenix from the flames.
Tom Jones. I'll never understand that. It'll never make sense.
That's asking way too much there, Chris.
Well...
Yeah, so next up is The Godfather Part 2.
Indeed.
Excited for that.
Awesome.
I am excited. Is it the better Godfather? That's the question.
Yes, that's the question right there.
We'll find out.
Yeah, that is definitely the question.
Have you guys rewatched it yet?
Nope, I haven't watched it yet. I also think, and this is a very controversial opinion, I think it's not the right choice for that year either. But there you go.
Wow. Cool. We'll put a tab on that.
We'll get to that next week. Yeah.
So, without watching The Godfather 2 yet, would you predict it's better than the first without without a rewatch? Are you expecting it to be better, or do you think The Godfather would be number one?
So I've always thought The Godfather 1 was a better movie. When I did the three of them back to back and over the years, and I've done it that way, I've always thought The Godfather 1 was the better movie, because I generally like origin stories of the way that it's done in Godfather 1 versus 2. Because obviously they've got the time gap and the jump in the younger life, etc. in 2. And I like the way they set up the kind of power dynamics in the first one with the marriage, etc. at the start of that movie. I've always preferred that setup much better. But I do know that generally it's accepted that 2 is better than 1 by most people, or by a greater number of people. So it makes me very keen to revisit it.
Yeah, I was in that camp of the 2 is better than 1. But after rewatching the first one this time, and having, and putting my thinking cap on and taking all the notes and discussing it thoroughly with you guys, it's gonna feel like it's gonna take a lot to overcome 1 at this point. We'll see. Maybe 2 will do the same thing on a rewatch, and I'll put the thinking cap back on and I'll be amazed again. But yeah, we'll see. As far as our whole list of movies goes, up to this point, Godfather's on top. So
That and Midnight Cowboy are fighting for the top spot for me.
pretty damn good, yeah.
My heart says West Side Story, my head says Godfather 1. But there you go.
Yeah. That's going to be a good one next time, for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. So, until next time, Jared, where can people find you?
You can find me in the Fancy Thinker YouTube channel and Speculative Speculation podcast and Panel Chewing and some other fine places on Page Chewing.
And Chris.
You can find me on the Chronicle of Chris YouTube channel. You can find me on that Speculative Speculations podcast as well, and on patreon.com in general.
Yeah, you can find me on Page Chewing. Best place to find me. We have lots of stuff going on, so come by and say hello. Check out all the different podcasts and read-alongs and all sorts of fun stuff all the time. So we will see everyone next time and discuss The Godfather Part 2. We'll see you then.